Alright people, so welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our current affairs lecture series. Now today we are going to cover current affairs from 18th of August. So all the important news items that featured in 18th of August's newspapers shall be covered in today's lecture. Now needless to say this, we have to make this lecture series, you have to make this lecture series a part of your daily routine. Because if you don't, you won't get a hold over these current affairs. Okay, and if you don't get a hold over these current affairs, you would miss out on 50% of your UPSC paper. So it is very important to capture current affairs. Make this lecture series a part of your daily routine for that. It would only cost 30 minutes of your time in one day, but it will be really useful. All right? Okay then. Let's begin today's discussion. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. So let's begin. So daily current affairs, 18th of August, and here are the topics that we shall cover. So number one topic is NASA's moon-based program, because recently NASA invited ISRO to participate in its moon-based program. It is a huge opportunity for Indian space program. So we'll talk about this. Okay. Then we'll go back in history, because there was this article related to Communal Award of 1932. I'm sorry, not 1936, 1932, which paved the way for reservations for SCs and STs in India. Okay. It all started from here. So it's important to revisit this historical event. So we'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about another article in the Indian Express newspaper, which talked about India producing too many engineers. But the problem over here is quantity versus quality. The quality of engineers is in question. Okay, the quantity is not in question. We produce a lot of engineers. Quantity is all right. The quality is a problem. So why is that? And how this quality is going to be really challenged in this AI world. So it's an important discussion that we need to be aware of. So we'll talk about this. Okay. So these are the three news items that we shall zero in our attention on. So let's start discussing them one by one. Starting with topic number one, and that is NASA's moon-based program. So NASA basically, not NASA, United States of America launched this program, launched this accord called Artemis Accord. And they invited countries to sign this Artemis Accord. The countries who will sign this Artemis Accord, well, these would be like-minded countries for lunar exploration, okay, moon exploration. And under this Artemis Accord architecture, NASA launched moon-based program. So they would create a permanent base on moon where astronauts would live, okay? And that moon base would be self-sustaining, right? Plus, there is an added advantage. It would act as a stopover for interplanetary expeditions. So if you're launching a spaceship to Mars, it will first halt at this moon base for refueling, resupplying, and then move to Mars. Okay, so it will act as a layover, stopover. So it's an important mission, right? Now, recently, NASA invited ISRO to participate in this moon-based program. It is a huge opportunity for India. But the thing is, as far as lunar exploration is concerned, well, the world is divided into two camps. One camp is led by USA. The other camp is led by China and Russia, space powers, China and Russia. And these are two watertight camps. Now, countries have to choose from either one of them. Now, currently, NASA has invited India. India will have to decide, and India will most probably join it. But, well, India has to take a call because there are certain disadvantages to joining this moon-based program. We'll talk about all these things. So let's begin. So NASA's moon-based program. So when did NASA invite ISRO? So 9th meeting of India-US Civil Space Joint Working Group in Bengaluru. NASA formally invited ISRO to join its moon-based program. Okay. Now India has to be careful. This moon-based program is part of Artemis architecture. Remember I told you about Artemis Accord? USA inviting like-minded countries to join lunar exploration. Remember, India is a signatory to this. So naturally, India is eligible for joining this moon-based program, plus a formal invitation has also been extended. But India has to be careful because the world is divided into two camps. Okay, one is Artemis Accords, US-led, and the other is Sino-Russian. Sino means Chinese, International Lunar Research Station. They're also creating their own separate research station. Okay, they're also creating their own separate base. So which one will India join? Or India will go on its own, create its own base? Well, we have to weigh in all the options. But first, let's take a look at the timeline. Okay, global lunar cooperation and ISRO's engagement. So the Artemis Accord was released. NASA's moon-based program was released, and NASA would create a base camp at lunar south pole of moon. And the reason why ISRO was chosen was because we have basically shown the world that we can land on south pole of moon through Chandrayaan-3 mission. So we have good credentials. That is why we are being invited. Okay, bilateral catalyst. Well, this was the meeting in which it was announced. Now, why is India being chosen, or why US wants India to join? Because India has shown through Chandrayaan-3 its south pole landing. Plus, India is already a signatory to Artemis Accord. Now, if India joins this, well, it is perfectly in sync with India's own missions, because India is going to launch Gaganyaan. It's first time Indian astronauts would go to space. Then India would create its own space station. Like International Space Station, we'll create Bharatiya Antariksh Station 2035, where astronauts would go dock, stay in space for a couple of weeks or even more. And we are also creating, or we are basically, we have launched an ambitious project that by 2040, we will land our own astronauts on moon, which Russia and USA have achieved way back in late 1960s, moon landing. Up till now, we have not landed astronauts on moon. We have landed machines. We would do this ambitious thing by 2040. So keeping these missions in mind, well, joining moon-based program is an important learning for us. We can learn a lot from USA and achieve these missions, right? Now, first of all, you need to know what is there in this moon-based program. What would be constructed on this moon base? So they'll create a base camp surface habitat, a permanent foundation module designed to support up to 4 astronauts for 30 to 60 days. Okay, that's a lot on moon. Then, on that base camp, there will be vehicles so that astronauts can travel away from their base camp to do research and all. So there will be a lunar terrain vehicle. It will be a short distance vehicle in which astronauts will sit in their own astronaut suits. And then there will be habitable rover, which will allow astronauts to travel long distances without their astronaut suits, because that vehicle would be pressurized. So within that vehicle, well, astronauts can sit like you and me are sitting right now without their astronaut suits. So this is part of this. Then fission surface power system. You see, for all of these operations, you require power, electricity. Now the thing is, well, you will carry solar panels. Solar electricity would be produced. But on South Pole, well, there are lunar nights as well. On South Pole, every month for 14 days, okay, every month for 14 days, sun doesn't shine on South Pole. You have no solar energy, sun shining on it. These are called lunar nights, these phases, and it is 14 days long. Now, how will you produce electricity during that period? So you will take nuclear reactors, okay, small micro reactors for that. Then in situ resource utilization. Well, you can't carry water because it will be expensive to carry water from Earth. So you will use water ice from lunar craters. We have found ice on lunar craters. Drinking water would be created, breathable oxygen, liquid hydrogen, oxygen, rocket propellant would also be created, so that when future rockets, okay, which will be aboard, which will be on their way to Mars or Jupiter, they can land and refuel. So the fuel would be created over here only. So these four things are part of moon-based program. Clear? Now, here is a table which shows how well India's own missions are completely in sync with this moon-based program. Basically, how India stands to gain from this moon-based program. What help would be given to Gaganyaan program? Then Axiom 4 mission, this is American. Okay, joint ISRO-NASA mission. Then Chandrayaan 4, Lupex Chandrayaan with Japanese Space Agency, Bharatiya Antariksh Station by 2035. For that, we need astronaut training, and Indian crewed lunar landing. By 2040, we'll land our astronauts. All these missions would learn a lot from this moon-based program. Okay, so we should join it. But there are arguments against joining this also. Okay, now what are those arguments? So this is the gains that we'll get, this column. Okay, direct access to advanced NASA deep space telemetry. Telemetry means communication between astronauts and ground stations. Okay, co-development of lunar surface power, in situ resource utilization payloads. We'll extract water, drinkable water, all that. commercial opportunities for Indian space tech startups, of course, because of these learnings. But there are certain pitfalls. Number one, potential risk of becoming a junior partner of USA. This would stunt our independent growth. ISRO is powerful because ISRO did all of this on its own. That is a risk. Then budgetary constraints. If we are going to divert our scarce funding to American missions, then we will be short of money for our own missions. Okay, we have our own domestic satellite programs, so that would require money. So these are budget constraints and risk of becoming a junior partner. Well, these are huge risks in this. Now, what is the way forward? What should we do? We should definitely join this mission, but we should define our role in it. Clear-cut communication of our role in this mission should be done to USA. This should be done. Then we should continue investing in our own resources, in our own capabilities. For that, we need a new rocket, new launch vehicle. Currently, we are building new generation launch vehicle, NGLV, so we should continue our investments, our budget, our resources on that. Because this would allow us to launch our own Antariksh station, okay, moon landing. We need a heavier rocket for this. So this should be done. Then strengthen in-space private ecosystem. You see, InSpace is an organization which promotes private space exploration. Government created a regulatory organization that regulates private space activities and promotes private space activities. So if private space industry in India grows, it would take away a lot of burden from ISRO. ISRO won't require that much money. Normal commercial satellites would be launched by these private companies. So this is good. We should do it. And to solve this rivalry between Russia, China, and USA, well, we need an international law. International law so that everyone has their defined role. India should accelerate its diplomatic efforts to create this space law. Currently, there is something called UN COPUS, Committee on Peaceful Use of Space. UN Committee on Peaceful Use of Space. We should basically promote this so that there is no conflict and everyone is exploring space in a friendly manner. That's something that we should do, right? That would be all. Okay, that's all you need to know as far as this news item is concerned. Now let's quickly shift our focus to next news item, and that is Communal Award of 1932. Okay, now you must have heard about separate electorates. The British ruled India for so long because of its divide and rule policy. And there were various methods applied by the British to divide Indians and conquer Indians, right? One method was separate electorate. Okay, this separate electorate, first time introduced in 1909, divided Hindus and Muslims. So what they did was, there are provincial assemblies, okay, so there would be elections, certain seats would be reserved for Muslims, and in those seats, only Muslims can vote for those candidates. So currently, there is a system of reservation for SCs and STs, but those SC-ST seats, well, people from all caste, religion vote for those SC-ST candidates, okay. That was not what the British did. British said that there would be certain seats reserved for Muslims and only Muslims can vote for Muslim candidates, only Hindus can vote for Hindu candidates. For the first time, within the same country, we divided two populations, right? This was a genius move by the British, but it really harmed India. It led to partition eventually. Now in 1930s, the British feared that Indians are uniting again, okay? So they have divided Muslims. Now what they wanted was to further divide the non-Muslim population. So they created this, they extended this separate electorate system. Okay, they extended it to Anglo-Indians, Sikhs, and they extended it to depressed classes, what we know today as SCs. Now, SCs would also have separate electorates. Now, when this news reached Mahatma Gandhi really objected to it. He said that this was a way to divide the Hindu society from within. Okay, so this is not allowed. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was supporting it, but Mahatma Gandhi did not. Back then, Mahatma Gandhi was in Yerwada jail, Pune, and he decided to go on a fast unto death to block this. Okay, now there was this constant communication between Gandhian supporters and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, constant debates, and eventually Dr. B.R. Ambedkar came to Mahatma Gandhi and they reached a compromise formula. Okay, not separate electorates, but the depressed classes need some reservation. So they came to a compromise called Pune Pact. Now, what was that compromise, that middle path, which saved Hindu society from division Yet, it created space for depressed classes for their political empowerment. Okay, we need to be aware of this because this system informed the current SC/ST reservation in parliament and state assemblies. Clear? Make sense? So let's talk about this. So it was the infamous Communal Award of 1932, okay, by the then Viceroy Ramsay MacDonald. So on August 1932, British Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald announced Communal Award on the findings of Indian Franchise Committee, Lothian Committee, and deliberations of Second Roundtable Conference. Roundtable conferences, all three of them. The award established separate electorates for not only for religious minorities like Muslims already had, Sikhs, Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians, and Europeans, but also depressed classes. Now, Mahatma Gandhi was okay for all of them, not this. Okay, this was the timeline of this whole issue. So, Communal Award was announced in 1932. On August 16th, September 20th, Gandhiji began his fast unto death in Yerwada jail, Pune. Then September 2024, Bombay Conclave mediators, Gandhian supporters engaged with Ambedkar because Ambedkar supported this. Okay. Then finally, after 3-4 days, Pune Pact was signed. Now, Pune Pact was a compromise formula. Under this, well, the depressed classes won't have separate electorates, but within the general electorate, which was for Hindus, general, okay, there are reserved seats, there are general, right? So within the general electorate, there would be reservations for depressed classes. Like the current system, okay? So within the Hindus, there would be reservation, and in those seats which are reserved for depressed classes, all can vote. Hindus, Muslim, all Hindus can vote. There won't be separate electorate. It is a joint electorate, but there is a system of reservation. So some seats would be reserved for depressed classes. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was happy, and all members of Hindu society can vote for them. Mahatma Gandhi was happy. So this compromise formula was reached. The British government amends Communal Award and accepts this Pune Pact compromise formula. And when they enacted Government of India Act 1935, they allowed for this. So this was the whole issue. Okay. Now, before September 24, when Gandhian supporters and Ambedkar were having this fierce debate, what were each side's arguments? You should know this also. So what was Mahatma Gandhi's perspective? Untouchability is a moral and spiritual sin of caste Hindus requiring internal penance, internal reform. Separate electorates would permanently divide Hindu society and extend untouchability. It would be further practiced. Preferred moral transformation and joint electorates, in preference of, well, he preferred moral transformation rather than separate electorate. Whereas Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said, untouchability is a structural, political, and human rights crisis. To solve this, depressed classes need legal power, and separate electorate would give them that. Upper caste paternalism cannot secure real rights. Depressed classes need autonomous political voice, demanded constitutional safeguards. Even if you're going to give us reserved seats, give us safeguards. Okay. So what was the compromise of Pune Pact? Joint electorate with reserved seats, all would vote, plus substantial expansion of provincial seats. So under the system of separate electorate, the depressed classes were promised 71 seats in provincial assemblies, state assemblies. Well, under the system of reservation, we increased the number of reserved seats. We increased it to 148. But that would be through joint electorate, not separate. In the central legislature also, we increased their quota. Plus, the system of joint electorate would have a two-tier primary election system. So what would happen? Suppose there is a seat reserved for SCs, depressed classes, okay? First, all the SCs in that seat would vote and select 4 candidates. And then elections would take place. This election where they'll have 4 candidates, select 4 candidates, would be known as primary elections. Once these 4 candidates are selected, then from among these 4, all would vote, all upper caste, lower caste, to select one from this. So there will be a primary election and then final election. Non-discrimination and educational outlays, no discrimination against Dalits in government jobs, and educational budget should be dedicated for education of depressed classes. This was promised. This was the compromise. Now, there is a proper comparison between Communal Award and Pune Pact. Okay, separate electorate, joint electorate, 71 seats, 148 seats, undefined specific percentage, 18% reservation for depressed classes in center parliament. Recognize depressed classes as distinct minority from Hinduism. This made sure that depressed classes are considered depressed within Hinduism. Okay, this is what Gandhiji wanted to protect. Executive declaration by British PM. This award was accepted by the legislature. Okay, in Government of India. Now, what was this award's legacy? Okay, the legacy was current reservation system is based on this. It's exactly the same, except there are no primary elections. Okay, reorientation of Gandhi's constructive program. Gandhiji realized that there is this divide between upper caste and lower caste. Therefore, after leaving from jail, okay, he started his own All India Anti-Untouchability League. He restarted his constructive work program so that to remove this untouchability and bridge this divide. Ambedkar continuously criticized this. He said that yes, Pune Pact is reached, but I'm not happy with it. And well, eventually, this system found its way in Indian Constitution. So this is the legacy. Clear? That would be all, right? And now let's quickly shift our focus to third news item, and that is India produces too many engineers. Recently, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that just because certain people have degrees doesn't mean they are employable. Okay, now she was criticized for this, but the fact is, the statement is true, right? Many people have many degrees, yet many companies complain that these people are not qualified to be employed with us, though on paper they have degrees. So there is this huge mismatch, right? Now, the problem is not with those students, problem is with our higher education system. And that is why Nirmala Sitharaman ji is being criticized. But the problem is with our higher education system, right? So what is that problem? We'll talk about that. But now there is an added problem. With the coming of AI, generative AI, all these degrees are becoming redundant, irrelevant. The companies don't require these skills which are being taught in our colleges, especially engineering colleges, right? So AI is another disadvantage for these engineering colleges. So already we are producing a lot of engineers, but most of them are unqualified for current skill set required for current jobs. Plus, with the coming of AI, they are becoming even more irrelevant. So first we'll focus on what are the problems that are making our youth unemployable, youth engineers, okay, engineers unemployable. Though we are producing a lot of, the quantity is pretty high, the quality is not there. And with AI, well, the problem is getting even worse. So let's investigate this matter, okay? So India produces too many engineers. So the statement made by Nirmala Sitharaman, a mere degree doesn't prepare one for job market. So there is a gap between formal degrees and actual employability. Okay. Now, here's the thing with India. Okay. The reason why it was in the late 1990s or especially after 1999, that demand for engineering rose rapidly. Okay. So engineering was not the most preferred course for students. It was in 1999 and 2000 that engineering boomed and everyone was opting for engineering. Okay. So it is from here that the quantity increased, but the quality still remained shabby. So what is that timeline? So post 2000 expansion phase, what happened was there was this huge demand for IT services. There was .com boom in the West, Y2K issue, huge demand for IT services. Okay. Now India had limited number of engineering colleges, IITs, NITs, RECs, and some private. So India invested heavily on increasing the number of colleges. So we solved the problem of access of engineering colleges. Network of these were increased. Norms for private engineering colleges were eased. So private engineering colleges mushroomed in India. So the access problem was solved. That if you want to do engineering, you can find a college in your vicinity. Okay. But the regulation of these private colleges, especially private colleges, they didn't focus on the quality of education. They created certain norms that you need to have these many. So we created various regulatory organizations, AICTE, All India Council for Technical Education, and many others. Well, they only focused on number of classrooms, number of teachers, research work done by teachers, all these quantitative things. If these are done, AICT approval is given. AICT rarely focused on the learning outcomes of students. And that is why most of the teachers focused on only on their research work. The colleges focused on labs and all of that. Learning outcomes did not get any focus. Classroom teaching did not get any focus because there was no way of checking that. Okay, so there was this regulatory problem. And now Gen AI is coming. All of these degrees, all of this education becomes irrelevant. Okay, because all of this can be done by AI. These people are replaceable. So we need some transition. To make these people relevant, we need to change their program, their curriculum. Okay, currently what is done? In the classrooms, they are taught some concepts and then the examination checks whether they are able to remember those concepts or not. That is no longer relevant, right? Now AI can easily create within seconds those concepts. Yes. So this rote learning is not relevant. What is relevant is system design, analytical thinking. Okay. So this is soft skills are relevant. So we need to change our pedagogy. Okay. So this is the reason for post 2000 expansion. Y2K IT service catalyst, but there was this problem. Okay. Certain branches in engineering became extremely popular. Everyone wanted to opt for computer, IT, electronics, and nobody opted for civil engineering and many other core engineering subjects. So many colleges had to close down these. Plus, even within computers and IT, there was this huge mismatch between, well, the requirements of the companies and the education given to our people, our students. So this is there. Now, the problem was with our regulatory councils who gave approvals to colleges. So first they wanted documentary compliance, AICT and all these National Accreditation Council. Okay. So they wanted, I mean, faculty should be there, their research work should be there, documentation should be proper. So most of the times the faculty was busy in manuals, reports, administrative paperwork, and rarely they focused on classroom teaching. Okay. Focused on formal documentation over learning outcomes. Okay. And what was the situation with classroom teaching? Reliance on rote memorization. Okay. Which we say, I mean, in North India, they say rata. That was done. Adding new courses rather than rethinking how students use concepts. We were constantly focusing on making them aware of new concepts rather than telling them how can you apply these concepts in real life. I mean, the classroom quality declined, and partly these councils are to blame, those who were handling these colleges. Okay. Plus with Gen AI, with AI, everything is collapsing again. The conventional model was teachers teach. Okay, they assign, they give homework, they assign standard problem, there is a written exam, and you have to replicate what was taught to you in the class. Now, all of this can be done by AI. Homeworks are irrelevant now. The homework, the project work that was given to students, it is irrelevant. LLMs can do that within seconds. Okay, so there is a breakdown. Whatever is being taught in these curriculums, in these classes, are no longer relevant. Students would find them absolutely useless in the real world. Okay, so what should be done? So here's the thing. Okay, this is what is being done currently, this second column, and the third column is the changes that we need to bring in. So when it comes to classroom, earlier classrooms were focused on information delivery, one-way lectures. Now it should be a dialogue between students and teachers, Socratic inquiry, questions, critical thinking, problem framing. Earlier coding assignments, we are talking about engineering, especially computer science engineering. So students were asked to code, to write code. Now students should be asked to don't write code. Code can be written by LLMs. Design what kind of code you need. There is a problem. Now to solve this problem, what type of code do you need? Okay, you need to design an algorithm. Code for that algorithm will be written by LLMs. Focus on that. Currently, we focus on your memory, rote learning. Now, rote learning shouldn't be prioritized. I mean, evaluating alternatives, engineering choices, experiments, this should be encouraged. And currently, many engineering colleges ban these AI tools. Well, now your curriculum should include these AI tools. Okay, students should be allowed, and in fact, these AI tools should be part of your teaching only. Teach them these tools also. This should be done. So what is the way forward? First of all these accreditation council, AICT and all, should focus on learning outcomes rather than research papers. How many research papers are written by this teacher, reports, labs, all of that. Then deepen industry academia partnership. Colleges should have partnerships with private companies, joint projects. Okay, only then colleges would be able to teach something that is relevant, demanded by these companies. Continuous faculty development in AI. Faculty should be taught AI so that they can teach it to students. Okay, revitalizing core engineering disciplines. The core engineering disciplines, civil, electrical, all these engineering curriculums should now have AI tools also, because civil engineers are currently using AI tools. So you should teach how to use AI tools in civil engineering, rechange these core disciplines and promote them. Cultivating irreplaceable human capabilities. Your engineering courses should also teach analytical thinking. These human capabilities are not replaceable by AI. Soft skills, communication skills, this should be done. And this is part of our new education policy goals also. So this should be the way forward, right? That would be all. So with that, we conclude today's session. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. I'm sure about it. If you have listened to this lecture properly, giving your 100%, it has definitely added value to your preparation. Now, what you need to do is just these two things. Number one, make this lecture series a part of your daily routine. And number two, revise this lecture from the notes provided by us. Otherwise, you'll forget these current affairs. So you need to solidify these current affairs in your memory, and that can be done through revision. So do that. So with the hope that you are precisely going to do that, I shall take your leave with the promise of seeing you again with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.